We're sort of in this back street right here, so we can kind of do a quick little acceleration test if you guys want. Of course you want, right? Certainly no slouch of a motorcycle. Pulls really nice and hard. I think it makes about 90 something horsepower at the peak. I can't remember exactly. And we're not talking specs today. We're just seeing how the bike feels and what it's like to ride. I think the thing I feel most about this bike taking it down the road is it just feels so sophisticated, and not in a kind of like, oh, it's got a bunch of technology being thrown at it like it's some kind of kitchen sink or something, but and not like, you know, it's got a bunch of technology thrown at it like everything in the kitchen sink and all that, but the way in which it rides feels very nice. That's about as much as I can kind of tell you with it. I don't know what it is about this bike, but between the suspension, the way it's put together, it just feels really special. And it's so nice taking it down these twisty roads. Honda actually set up the suspension pretty stiff from factory, honestly. This thing is pretty sporty, which I didn't expect it to be, given that it's a more upright. I thought it would be a little softer, kind of like the SV and the FC, but it's really not. It's quite stiff. If we're lucky, maybe I can take this thing out to a track day and see how it performs in closed conditions, because obviously, you know, here with traffic and on the street, we're not going to push it super hard, but it's still quite fun to just kind of chuck down a twisty road. The throttle response is surprisingly good too. I mean, I think that the takeaway from it is, you know, given that it's a 4-cylinder, it just exudes this kind of smoothness to it. You know, it's extremely, extremely smooth. The downshifts are extra, extra smooth as well. Get into first here, no problem. I think the big thing that people think about as well is because it's a 650cc 4-cylinder, you know, I think this bike confuses a lot of people because they see CB650 and they're like, oh, okay, so it's like a Ninja 650 or an SV650, and it's really not. This bike is not like those bikes at all. This bike, in terms of its power, in terms of its quality and fit and finish, in my opinion, competes much more closely with something like an FC09 or a Ninja 900, but I think it really makes the case for the old school kind of, you know, Street Fighter 600 class bike. And given you have the extra 50 cc's and it doesn't rev as high as a normal 600, like, it's kind of in a class of its own in a way. And at first when I saw this motorcycle, I actually saw it at EICMA 2018 last year in Milan, and I was kind of like, well, what's Honda really trying to do with this bike? I mean, it looks amazing. This bike looks so good. You just cannot even deny that. But I was kind of like, where does it slot in? And it doesn't really slot in anywhere, in my opinion. Because the way it goes down the road is completely different than something like the SV or the FZ07. This bike doesn't feel budget at all, and the FC and the SV, as fun as they are, you know, they feel plasticky. They feel kind of like you can, like, I wouldn't really care about dropping an FZ07, to be honest. Like, if you're a new rider and you're in a parking lot and you kind of dip the bike a little bit down, it's not the end of the world. But with this thing, I would feel particularly bad about dropping it. It's quite nice. It's, you know, all the little like touches on it are really, really special, I think. Like the powder coated bar here, the bronze accents on the tail, the bronze accents on the engine case covers. It's a motorcycle that kind of tells the world, hey, like, this is a nice bike, you know? I mean, it's a shame we're stuck behind this car. I'm going to show you guys some twisty action. It's a really, really rewarding engine to ride. I'm telling you, man, you rev this thing out, it feels like your classic inline 4-cylinder kind of vibes. It's got, in my opinion, like plenty of torque to have fun with. It does have a weird little dip between 4 and 6,000 RPM. I kind of want to check that again. So we'll be here in third. Yeah, it's really kind of, there's a tiny little dip somewhere in the mid-range. I want to see a dyno graph of this bike and see if that confirms my suspicions, because it does feel a little strange right there. But if you're riding this thing in anger, you're usually, you know, revving it probably past 6,000 RPM, so I don't think you'd really notice. Like right here, you just kind of... it really picks up and goes. This thing's great. That's why I was kind of saying it's not really like an SV650 or an FZ07. I think it's a shame that this thing's getting kind of lumped in with those bikes, because it's not like that at all. It's quite a performance machine, actually. I really wouldn't feel comfortable recommending this to a beginner, to be honest. I think you could ride any bike as a beginner, but this is not the best choice. This bike is actually quite quick. But the good thing is, because it's a 4-cylinder, even if you whack the throttle low down, it's not going to do too much, you know. I'll take it through this little twisty section here. But yeah, a real supple, really enjoyable motorcycle to just hustle down these twisty roads. It rewards really, really precise inputs. That's kind of what I'm noticing. The brakes are great. The brakes are really good. A really welcome change over those squishy Takikos that the Suzuki SV650 has. They're really nice on this bike. Really good feedback. Like, look at that. This bike really goes, man. It really hustles, doesn't it? Being purposefully tough with the inputs there, just to see what it would kind of do. And it's really stable. This bike is so stable. Let's rip it out here a little bit. Let's see what it does. So yeah, it's geared really differently than a traditional 600, because it's not a traditional 600. It's a 650 street-tuned engine, revs to only about 12,000, 11,500. So you're not going to be banging off 15, 16,000 RPMs on this thing like you would on a 600. But that to me makes it perfect, honestly. If you're looking for, you know, 4-cylinder kind of fun, but in a package that is modern and isn't some gigantic engine, this is your bike. This is the bike to have, I think. This bike allows you to have a lot of fun with a 4-cylinder engine without feeling like you're gonna go to jail every 5 seconds, you know? I mean, certainly you can ride this bike in anger and find yourself doing triple-digit speeds, but you really have to look for it. It's not a bike where you're gonna accidentally look down and be like, oh, I'm doing 110 miles per hour. You'll know when you're doing 110 because you made it go 110. What a machine. This thing is so sweet. I know I like this thing because before starting this video, I had to go get some food because I don't like vlogging on an empty stomach. I feel like my brain doesn't work right. And as soon as I got off, I looked back, it looks cool. And the first thing I thought of, I was like, oh man, I want to like hurry up and eat so I can get back on this bike and go ride. It has such a playful nature to it that you really want to have fun with it and ride it and enjoy it. Like, I don't really want to stop riding this thing. It's so sweet. There is a definite dip in torque somewhere in the middle there. I really want to see this thing on a graph. Let's take it through here. gonna sing once we get a pipe on him. I'm telling you, man. What a fun bike. And it just looks so good, doesn't it? Downshifts so beautifully.